Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time, a CASource family production. In this episode, we're going to talk about choosing the right health insurance plan, disruption in business, and the United States Navy. Our guest today is Kyle Romanat, founder of Health Market Genius. Kyle has been a health insurance agent for 20 years. He currently lives in Charlotte, North Carolina with his wife and 4 children. With his expertise in the health insurance market, Kyle can help you navigate the healthcare marketplace. He has already helped us. Kyle brings perspective of someone who has been disrupted in business but never skipped a beat. With disruption happening at a rapid rate across many industries, you can absolutely learn from Kyle on how to pick up the pieces and build something better. And because of his experience, history, and success, we're excited to have Kyle on the podcast. Let's get into it. Kyle, welcome to the Entrepreneur Perspectives podcast. Great to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to get started with some questions requiring a more thoughtful response and with some rapid fire questions. You ready to get going?
I'm ready.
All right, so 5 years ago, did you expect this kind of craze in the health insurance market?
No, I had no idea. I mean, it's been turned upside down. I never thought the leaders of the health insurance industry would allow things to be turned over the way they have. So yeah, it's been really interesting to say the least.
I can imagine. Did it flip your business over when all this happened?
It did flip my business, and it actually led to me starting my own business. I mean, it was such a drastic game changer in the health insurance industry that, I realized that it was becoming something completely different than had ever existed before in the United States.
Yeah, you can say that again. I think we're all dealing with it as a business owner myself, and just, as one that deals in the insurance market, not health insurance per se, but just in the insurance market in general. It was just amazing to watch, a lot of our clients, for example, that are in the health insurance industry deal with this type of disruption. And we'll definitely get into more of that in our conversation today. But moving on, talking a little bit about you. You heard the intro about you. I can't do you justice, though, in one opening statement. So tell us something real about you that the audience wouldn't know.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to. I live in the South Charlotte area. I'm married to a lady who is pastor of a church here in South Charlotte. I have 4 kids. My dad was an Air Force officer, so I grew up a good bit of the time overseas. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, well, that keeps you busy, I'm sure. 4 kids, all over, age range all over, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I got 2 in their 20s and 2 who are in their teens.
Wow. A lot of things to deal with, and owning a business and spending a lot of time with your family, I'm sure. So it keeps you busy just like any other entrepreneur. So that's pretty amazing. And we love talking to people like yourself that are in that boat, because a lot of us are. And it's interesting to find out how other people, balance their life and focus on their business as well. So with that in mind, tell us a little bit about your business, the Health Market Genius.
Okay. Yeah, I started Health Market Genius about 2.5 years ago. I worked for an agency that handled health insurance, but boy, they were just not prepared for the changes that came down the pike. Nobody was. And I just realized that as those changes occurred, as people had problems with the healthcare.gov and all the other different problems with the marketplace, I saw agents running away from it, and I just felt like there was a void of expertise. It was hard for people to get good advice and to understand what their options were. So I felt like that was an opportunity for me to start a business and to fill that void.
I think that's amazing because, that you saw the pain in the marketplace and you saw an opportunity that existed even after all the, with all the different things that are going on with health insurance, even before the big change. And then obviously after the big change that we've talked about with the Affordable Care Act and, and then you finding that opportunity to create a business around it. And that was how we connected, right? Because we were looking at it from our standpoint, from an individual standpoint, as who can we talk to that can educate us on the health insurance market. And there's less people doing that today. And so I obviously see the need for what you are doing. People are in pain and they need help. In pain from a standpoint of they don't have the education, they don't have the information to make an informed decision, and that's where someone like you comes in. So In your day-to-day work as a health insurance agent and at your business, what's your focus and the ultimate goal for your business?
My ultimate goal, obviously, is to build a business, but the main thing I focus on from day to day is just helping people understand what their options are. It's amazing to me how confusing it is. Not only that, but with all the political swirl of executive orders and rumors and just different things you hear in the news, it's amazing how many how much inaccurate information is out there. So I always tell people, just know your options. I'm not always going to have good news for you, but I will help you understand your options. And I think that's the biggest thing, that people can accurately get their options, and they're not always going to have good news, but at least they'll know, what their options are and what they can do.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, our business on the life insurance side, we often have to deliver bad news, even on the front end when it's just talking about an offer that they couldn't get or the price has gone up, has an increase. But like you're saying, you are going to give them ideas, you're going to give them options, but it might not be this great news that they were all looking for. And right now, you're probably dealing a lot with it. And it's got to be hard because premiums go up every single year. The options are going down every single year. What is that like, having those conversations with people, knowing that it's impacting, the decisions they're going to make with healthcare, and it's going to impact their, bank account?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, in the end, it is what it is. But just helping them see that a lot of times the option that they think is the only thing that they have is not the only thing that they have, and helping them think creatively about how they can handle their health coverage, whether it be through changing a plan that they have, or maybe going with a different type of plan. Just seeing the different options that are out there, I really feel like people are hungry for that, and they really appreciate knowing that. I can't turn bad news into good, but a lot of times there's options that people haven't even thought of, and that's what I provide.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're in open enrollment season as we're recording this podcast, and it's going to come out during it as well. And there's going to definitely be some time for people to still make good decisions and things. There are opportunities even after open enrollment, as we've talked about offline before. But as it comes to a close, like, what is some guidance or some advice that you would give to our listeners about health insurance, and what do they need to double check before this thing comes to an end, before open enrollment comes to an end?
I think the biggest thing that people need to do is be careful not to park on preconceived notions about something they heard or something that they saw in the news. I think it's important for them to talk to a professional and to understand, number one, where they're at and what their options are, because it can vary drastically. It can vary based on your income. It can vary based on your age. It can vary based on your health. So it's important for them to talk to a professional so that they can get the hard facts and not park on some kind of rumor or some kind of thing they saw in the news. I just think that's the biggest thing, just for people to know their options.
And are there specific options? So we obviously know that healthcare.gov, right? We can go there. We can go to the open market. Obviously, if you work for a large company, you have group insurance, which is always beneficial. What options do exist though for individuals that are looking for, or families that are looking for individual health care?
Well, first of all, the plans that are out there on the marketplace, people have heard about that. That's Obamacare. That's, Affordable Care Act plans. But those plans can vary substantially based on the subsidy. The subsidy is based on income. Income can vary based on deductions you take, based on how you file your taxes. So, I'll get into that a little bit with people. I'm not an accountant. I'm not going to get into that deep. I'll tell them, hey, if I were you, this is the goal I would want to have income-wise. Talk to your accountant about how you can reach that goal, and things like that. And it can make a huge difference. These subsidies, they go up every year. Generally, they go up more than the price of the insurance. So a lot of my clients this year are paying less in 2018 than they paid in 2017. So, just the importance of talking to a professional, someone who knows what they're doing, who can give guidance, it just goes a long way.
Yeah. So are there options outside of the Affordable Care Act for Obamacare?
Yeah. One of the primary options that I talk to people about this year in particular are Christian health share plans. It's not insurance. It's not major medical coverage, but it acts like major medical coverage. It acts like a good insurance policy, and it's a very good price. It's not for everybody. There's limitations, and I mention that to people right off the bat just so they can understand that this is not a cure-all situation. but it is a good option for some, and I talk to a lot of people about that.
Okay. Now, going on beyond that, there's critical illness policies and all that. Is there anything else that someone could consider? So you've given two options. Is there a third option that? And obviously we're talking mostly in North Carolina, but it's all relatable in different states. Is there a third or fourth option?
The other options out there are more like supplemental type plans. They're plans that you would get to go along with something and along with an insurance policy. Maybe if you have like a high deductible, you would get a plan that would cover doctor visits or hospitalization, if you have a $10,000 deductible or something like that. They're really not major medical plans that you can get other than what I've already mentioned. Now, you can for short term. There are plans designed for people who just need coverage for a month or 2 or 3 months. You can get good plans inexpensively like that, but they're not plans that you would want to have for the long haul.
Okay. So now people have these decisions to make. Can you choose none of the options? Is that an option for people?
Yeah, you can go without coverage and just pay the penalty. And in some cases, you can avoid the penalty if it's, you can file for a financial hardship waiver with the marketplace. With as expensive as plans are, a lot of people can qualify. In my opinion, it's crazy to go without coverage unless it's just absolutely an impossible situation. Once somebody has explored all their options, if that's their conclusion, then I respect that. But what I find is that people oftentimes have not explored all their options. They think they have, but they haven't.
Right.
And that's where I try to help them out.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that. And I would encourage anyone that is thinking about it, that it's hard to be an expert in all things, and it's important to go and seek an expert out like Kyle, to talk to Kyle and ask him the questions and give the insight. And then from there, like you're saying, Kyle, make that informed decision. I would also imagine that if you run without any healthcare coverage, you lose the negotiated rates, which is something that's overlooked, I would imagine. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. These different plans we're talking about now, they have, like you said, negotiated rates with hospitals, doctors, things like that. And if you don't have any coverage, then you just get a bill that, sometimes it's a pretty crazy amount. And, they try to hold that over your head.
Yeah.
And it can be pretty extreme.
Can individuals, if they kind of run their own, again, I'm kind of taking this a little bit to the extreme, but I think it's important because I think people are truly considering options like this. Could you deal with the insurance companies and the hospitals yourself and negotiate your own rates? Is that something that people, if they want to spend the time and have the know-how to do, could they do that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
They'll definitely come off of the retail price that they charge you. So that is certainly something that can be done.
Okay. So, and then the last thing on this subject is, the president that put this in, obviously it's named after him, and then you have a new president that obviously disagrees with it, and we're not talking politics here at all. We don't do that on this podcast. But the thing is, there was the penalty that you've talked about before, and there's been rumors, again, this is what you addressed before as well, is there's been rumors that the new president isn't looking to penalize people for not following the law of the ACA. I'm not sure if that's even something you can address on a podcast like this, but can you speak on that at all or not?
Yeah, and what I do is, and I don't get into the politics with my clients. It's kind of like an accountant talking about the tax system, He may like some things, he may dislike some things, but the bottom line is he helps people deal with it. That's what I do. The penalty is on the books. It has not been repealed. It's still part of the Affordable Care Act law. I calculate it for people if they ask me to. I help them understand how it works and what it is, and even sometimes how to get around it. So, that's what I'd say about that. Okay,
that makes sense. So now, I remember before the ACA happened, HSA was really gaining steam, and it was like, hey, you can, tax savings you can put. I think at the time it was like $4,000 or $5,000. Now I think it's above $6,000. You can address that specifically. HSAs were gaining steam, and you had the high deductible plans, and that kind of went away. Now HSAs still exist, but the savings on an HSA versus what they were before, as far as your health insurance premium is concerned, isn't great like it used to be. So now we're seeing this more, and you have the different bronze, silver, right, all those different plans, but you can have an HSA with it. Are you recommending HSAs for people now? Are the savings in the health insurance premium substantial enough to then consider an HSA? What's your thought on all that?
They are this year. I used to do a lot of HSAs before Obamacare came into play. insurance companies, at least the ones I dealt with, offered a pretty big incentive for people in the form of a very low premium if they would take out a plan that would allow them to do an HSA. It hasn't been that way in about the past 5 years or so, but now this year, coming into 2018, it is that way again. The plans that allow people to set up an HSA are drastically lower in cost than the other plans, so I'm back to recommending that for people. A single person can put about $3,300 into an HSA account. It's like a checking account, and it's tax deductible. Really, it's tax-free because you never pay the taxes on it. A family can put about $6,700 in, and in the end, that's tax-free. So that goes a long way, and I help people with that.
Okay. Yeah, and there's been a lot of articles out there. I mean, anytime you can put money away tax-free and have it grow, and it's hard not to do it. And then I would imagine you're telling these people to take the difference maybe in the premiums that they would have paid for a full plan without the HSA, put that difference into the HSA. Is that something you recommend?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's just a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
It's tax deductible going in, and then you take it out for your medical needs, for your dental needs, for your eye care needs, and you're never taxed on it. I mean, I don't know of any way to get tax-free money in our society that's legal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's no way to predict the future. We'd rather invent the future, as they say. But if you were to look ahead, or is it just too impossible to look ahead? You can say that as well. What direction is this going? Because it wasn't that long ago where we had options in the state of North Carolina, at least, and even in other states. Now there's one. If you're going to go through the healthcare.gov, you're going with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Do we envision other carriers getting back in the market? Do we think we're going to get some ways that we can go to different states to get coverage? What do you envision?
Well, here's what I can see happening. If companies are watching what happens. Blue Cross is the only one in the market in North Carolina. If companies see Blue Cross turn the corner and start to make money, they haven't made money the past few years. They've lost a lot of money. And that's indicative in the fact that we've lost United Healthcare, we've lost Aetna. Humana was going to be in the marketplace at one time. They decided not to come. So, there's no competition right now. If Blue Cross can turn the corner and start making some money, the other companies will pull back in. They'll come back in, and then we'll have more choices. Hopefully, premiums will start to drop. So everything could, work out in the end. But, we're right at the precipice right now. It can go either way, and we'll just have to see.
Yeah. Now, what about going across borders and getting other plans from other states? Is that something that could happen?
I really don't see that. That's a nice thought, and they do that with auto insurance and things like that. But I'm telling you that is a heavy lift on health insurance. You're talking, changing the way the Department of Insurance works, the insurance commissioners who monitor these things from state to states, the states who have plans set up for certain states based on the way things work in that state. I mean, to cross state lines, there really is so much more to it than people realize. I don't know. I really just don't see that happening in the short term. I think more in the short term, this company's coming back in the market if they see that there's money to be made. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Is there an opportunity or not opportunity? Is there a chance that we could see a repeal and replace, or just an overall repeal? Or, I mean, obviously that's very political and in a way. But what are we thinking with that?
Well, I feel like Congress has kind of taken their best shot at it, and they failed to repeal it. Everybody was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen. They didn't do it, so I'm not thinking that they're going to get momentum to be able to do it.
Yeah.
It's more like, things would just have to get worse with the health insurance. If they start to get a little better, then it's not going to happen at all.
It won't happen. Yeah, if things get better, it'd be hard to replace it at that point. I guess we'll just have to. Time will tell, right, as they always say. But it's always interesting to look ahead. It's a topic on a lot of people's minds. And so I think that's why we talk about it and try to help educate people about it. And I definitely appreciate your thoughts around that market. So we've talked a lot about adjustments in business. Adjustments in your business, adjustments in Blue Cross business, and all these other companies that are out there. As you know, we have a content platform called Sportspreneur. We write articles, creating analogies between business and sports. But in an article, we talked about the challenges we face in a business and making changes. And obviously in a sporting event and for sports teams, they have to make quick adjustments, and we often have a lot more time to make an adjustment in business. In health insurance, obviously, you've seen disruption for real. I mean, at the highest level. What is it like dealing with this disruption in your eyes, and not only just with health insurance, but just disruption in general? Like if you were to say a business owner that's out there, you already know that things are going to change. How do you handle that? Not necessarily from the business standpoint, because we've already addressed that, but just from the personal, emotional life standpoint. How do you deal with all that?
That's a great question. It is interesting because I found myself sometimes waking up in the morning and thinking to myself, wow, let me read the news and see what direction, health insurance is going to go, or whether I'm going to be in business tomorrow or not. It was just crazy to think that changes could happen so flippantly and so quickly, and with executive orders and just different things, change things drastically. In the end, you just tell yourself, just stick to what's real, stick to what's on the books. If the changes become law, then, we adjust. And you just have to have a flexible mindset that, things are going to happen and we'll just adjust.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I'm sure you had to tell yourself that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, we're seeing it more and more. I think the disruption in, the health insurance market, like I said before, you saw real disruption, and other businesses are in the middle of being disrupted. And the rate of change right now across all industries is incredible. And so I think we can all expect that disruption will happen. But like you said, and I like the way you put it, stick to what is real, stick to what you know, but think ahead, think ahead as to what things might play out, and be ready to, like you said, again, be flexible, be ready to make adjustments as needed, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure in order to keep yourself sane and do all these things, you do things outside of work. What is your passion outside of the work you do?
Well, I take my faith seriously. That's important to me. My wife, like I said, is a pastor of a church, so we're heavily involved with our church. I'm heavily involved with my kids' activities. My daughter's in the marching band at her high school. My son plays baseball. So we love to be involved in those kind of things. And I love to be active. I mountain bike. I snowboard in the wintertime. So those are things that I do. Yeah,
that's a lot of fun, and get all that, and keeps you going, I'm sure. To have that passion, and then kind of flipping it a little bit back to the business. There are things, and you had this before. I can't imagine a lot keeps you up at night for your business anymore, because you've already seen probably the worst that could happen when the government comes in and says, we're going to change everything that you do. But if you had to look at your business right now, what is the biggest fear for your business?
Well, the change doesn't bother me too much. It's more like job security. The more confusing they make it, the more people need, help with that. But I guess the biggest fear I have is if companies just say, you know what, we're not going to offer commissions anymore to agents. We're not going to pay anybody to help people. We're not going to offer incentive for professionals to help our clients. We're just going to let them go online directly to us, and then we'll take care of it. I guess that something like that would be my biggest business fear.
Yeah, so it's another group saying how you can and cannot get paid can certainly keep you up at night. No, I get that. Well, I appreciate, your insight into the health insurance market, but also your insight into the disruption in business, because that relates to all businesses. So I think in both those ways, we're grateful that you were able to spend some time with us on this podcast, and we definitely appreciate that part of it. This podcast episode of Entrepreneurial Perspectives is brought to you by CASCM. CASCM helps you, the business owner, engage with your audience like never before. CASCM partners with business owners like you to help you create your online presence through content marketing, which includes website development, content creation, content distribution, and social media management. From developing your story to execution, CASCM engages your audience. This is CASCM's passion. This is what CASCM does in its own business, and CASCM is excited to bring these services to you. Want to learn more? Simply visit CASCM.com. Those are more of the thoughtful questions, and now we want to get into the rapid fire round. So we're going to go a little bit quick here and ask you some questions, but some might be a little bit more challenging. Take your time with those if you need to. You ready to get going?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, cool. What book are you reading right now?
I'm in the middle of a book called American Kingpin by Nick Bilton. It's about the guy who created a website called The Silk Road. It's pretty interesting. True story.
Outstanding. So what is your favorite social media network?
I don't do a lot of social media, but my favorite one is Facebook, probably because I get a lot of referrals on Facebook. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. How are referrals coming in on Facebook? It just through Messenger on your business page?
Generally, they come through these large Facebook pages that are like group chat pages.
Yeah.
Somebody will mention a need for health insurance. Somebody will mention my name, and then fortunately, I have enough people that support me that several others will chime in, and next thing you know, I'll get calls and emails from people saying, "Hey, I saw you on Facebook. Your name."
Yeah.
So I get a lot of business that way.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's the amazing thing now, and I get it. Social media is tough, but from a business standpoint, in the way the window of opportunity into someone else's business or into your business that exists now, these are people that chances are you would have had a hard time connecting with in the past, and now Facebook, through, like you said, these groups, opens these new opportunities for you to grow your business. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, so what social media app has you the most confused?
I think the one that confuses me the most is Twitter, but
Okay.
not because of the way it works, but because I own some stock in it, and I have a hard time seeing why it doesn't take off as popular as it is, the way Facebook and Amazon.com have, and
Yep.
other things like that. But so I'm always perplexed by that. But
Yeah.
that's a different thing.
Yeah, and no, I agree. I mean, the popularity of Twitter and the way you can get news on Twitter. I mean, we love it, but understand that there's some definite issues within that business. I think the advertising part of it is they're not Facebook, and that's a big issue, that they're not able to create revenue as much as, say, a Facebook would from advertising, and there's just a lot of noise and pollution within the program, within the app. And I think that creates a problem for it as well. But at the same point, like, they're starting to adapt, they're starting to adjust. It's the popularity and the users are still there, so it's just a matter of them, figuring this thing out. But I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon unless it gets bought out. But yeah, I could understand your confusion on that part of it. So if you were to look at your phone right now, what app is most important to you?
I think the most important one is an app called Audible.com, where I use it for Audible books. I just inhale Audible books.
Yeah.
And if there was one, someone held a gun to my head and said, "You can only have one," that would be it.
I love it. I mean, I'm the same way. So the book that you're reading right now that you said before, are you using Audible to listen to that book?
Yeah.
Okay.
American Kingpin, yeah.
Yeah. So when you listen to a book, there's options, as you know, for listening at normal speed or faster speeds. How fast do you listen to your books?
I always use a 1.5 speed, sometimes 2 times the speed, because you can listen quicker than you can speak. So I listen a little quicker.
I'm the same way. I do the same thing. Right now I'm reading The Everything Store, the book about Jeff Bezos from Amazon, and it's amazing. I mean, it's a 13-hour book, but if you listen to it at 2 times speed, and you have to get used to it, there's no doubt. Like a few years ago, I probably wouldn't be able to do 2 times speed, but once you get used to it and train your mind to do it, it's amazing. It's like if you go slower, it drives you nuts.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like they're just drawing it way out. But you get used to it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. That's a very important app. So you started your own business and you did it there's a lot of disruption and changes in the marketplace. What's one thing you would tell an up-and-coming entrepreneur to focus on?
I think the biggest thing for people is to figure out what they like and what they're good at. I think so many people go through life and they don't really figure that out. But if I was a young entrepreneur or I was advising a young entrepreneur, that would be the foundation of your start. What do you like? What are you good at? And then, go from there. And I think sometimes the only way you can figure that out is just to try stuff. Just get out there, try things, do things, and see how it goes.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. All right, so I know there are many people, but who is one person that we can identify on this podcast today that helped you get you where you are today?
I think my wife, my wife who's the pastor of a church, she always encouraged me, and I turned 50 and I was thinking about starting my own business, and she just pushed me to do it. She said, "Go for it, just try it. What's the worst that can happen?" And so she encouraged me, and so I love that, and I really appreciate it. And I draw inspiration from people like Steve Jobs or Timothy Ferriss or the Christian author C.S. Lewis. I mean, these are people who think outside the box, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, obviously it's great advice that your wife's given, and I think that's amazing to have that type of encouragement behind you. I think it makes an important difference in people's lives. So, and you're talking about Steve Jobs, some of these other people. Did you read their books, listen to their books? Do you listen to podcasts like Tim Ferriss? Is that how you kind of draw inspiration on them?
Steve Jobs, I listened to his book, the biography about Steve Jobs. Just Apple, following Apple through the years.
Sure.
The amazing company that it was, and it had its ups and downs. Steve Jobs, his own company, fired him. And I think that's a good life lesson. Things don't always go rosy. The test is, what do you do? How do you rebound when things don't go so well?
Yeah.
And I think it's a great story. Timothy Ferriss, he wrote 4 Hour Workweek, which is really a book that kind of changed my life perspective. I really love that book, 4 Hour Workweek.
Yep.
And C.S. Lewis just provides the theological side of things that, like I said, is important to me.
Yeah, no, I think those are all great books. And, I find it interesting, too, just going back on that Amazon story. It's funny, when they were building the business, they were using lines of credit, and one of their guys would have to run to the bank real quick and write a check to keep the line of credit open so their business can stay open. Or if you look at the book Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight's book, the amount of times they almost went out of business is just remarkable. And, people look at them like these brands like Apple and Nike and Amazon and all these great companies, like they were just this overnight success story, and things just happened for them. And everything was so easy, and it was like anything but easy. And it was like torture to get through this and to like keep their business open. And like there's Phil Knight sitting, in a boardroom, like trying to make stuff up as he goes. Not to say like you need to do things unethically, but it just paints the picture like everyone's going through these struggles, even these amazing companies that came to be like the brands that we all know. I think you're spot on the way you look at it, and like watching Apple's up and down roller coaster ride that they had to where they are today.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So to kind of take a different direction here, we talked offline before, and you're a big sports fan. You play sports, and you mentioned college football. So who is your college football team, school that you root for?
Well, I root for Appalachian State because I lived in Boone. I lived in Boone, North Carolina for 20 years, so I took them on. But I love to see the big teams. I love to see Alabama, just perform in such an amazing way, and this is exciting every week. Fun to watch Clemson, and I love to follow it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, and you watch these incredible games and these teams, and there's so much passion. Obviously, you have a passionate way about you and your business, and I can imagine that would relate to the sports world. We love to relate business and sports, and I think nothing does it better than college football, at least in the United States. I know soccer outside the United States is in a similar way, or hockey in Canada. Like, there's just so much passion behind it. I do have to say, though, as an Ohio State fan, you have one of our greatest wins is when you beat Michigan many years ago.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't that long ago, but that was an amazing win.
It was. I got a T-shirt from that. That was an amazing win. Absolutely.
Yeah. And when I go to Boone, if I'm in a restaurant or a bar, and you'll see pictures of it everywhere still. Like, that's never going away. So very cool. Put them on the map.
I moved into the house that I live in now. When I first came to the neighborhood, my neighbor at the time, it was the first time I'd been in the neighborhood, he had a Michigan flag out in the yard. He's out there doing some yard work, and the first thing I did was give him a hard time about it.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, guess what? I'm going to be your neighbor. By the way, I'm an Appalachian State fan.
That's right.
I just gave him a hard time right away.
Yeah, that's so great. So great. So I'm assuming you're an NFL fan as well. You live here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Are you a Panther fan?
I'm a Panther fan, but after my dad finished coming back to the States from overseas, and our family came back, I lived in Rhode Island, so I'm a New England fan.
Okay.
So I root for the Patriots.
There you go. Well, that's a good team to root for. They've had a little bit of success, I think, over the years. So is this their year again? Are they going to win the Super Bowl?
It's looking good. Looking good. I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Bills fan, and it hasn't looked good. It's so funny because in the 90s, it was like the Patriots were somewhat insignificant, and the Bills were the ones going to Super Bowls. They didn't win any, I don't think. But, and it's, but it's flipped around, and, the Patriots are, like them or hate them. I mean, you have to respect the fact that they're just always in it. And even when they started slow this year, people started to be like, well, maybe the Patriots have issues, and maybe I was one of them. And you just watch them, and they just continue to get better every week and plug and play, and off they go. And other teams fall behind. So similar to other years.
Yeah, like them or hate them, you got to appreciate the excellence that they've brought to the game. Just like, I do, the way what the Yankees have done in past years, and you just appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot of hate in the world. There's a lot of hate in sports. I mean, they're obviously two completely different things. But sometimes it's interesting to watch greatness. It's interesting to watch these really good teams perform. You mentioned Alabama. You mentioned the Yankees. You mentioned the Patriots. There's other teams as well, and a lot of people like to root against, and that's fun too because it's a reason to tune in and watch and have a rooting interest in a team that you might not really have this overall passion for. But I think that's important as well, to then just watch these teams and appreciate what you're watching, as opposed to getting really upset about some team winning because you don't like them. So
right, yeah,
that's going to happen. And you just mentioned before that your dad was in the Air Force. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you served a stint, if I'm not mistaken, in the Navy not that long ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so tell us just real quick about your time in the Navy.
Yeah, I went to a military college, a federal academy in New York City, the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and out of there I took a commission in the Navy, and I went through flight training and was a naval flight officer and a navigator on a plane called P-3 Orions. So I did that for a little while before I got into the insurance industry, and it was a fun way to spend a few years.
Yeah, no, I could imagine so. Well, thank you for that, for your service, of course, and obviously being a part of the Navy. My grandfather followed a similar track. He was in the Navy back in the started in the World War II era, and over in the South Pacific. And eventually, after he left the Navy, or still in the Navy, but his business was the insurance business, and was a general agent for John Hancock up in Niagara Falls and Buffalo, New York. So it's obviously near and dear to our heart, and obviously big fans of the Navy for many reasons. And I appreciate you being in the Navy and talking about it here on this podcast.
Oh, thanks. That's awesome. I honor your grandfather's service, the greatest generation. I love those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, got to let you have the final words of encouragement for the audience. And then once you're done with that, give a little follow-up to how people can connect with you, whether it's on social or email or however you like.
Oh, great. Appreciate that. I guess the main thing I'd want to convey is that, we live in a land of opportunity. I think it's sometimes hard for young people to park on that because there's so much going on politically, and there seems like there's so many problems. But we really are in a country where people they're trying to get here. They want to access the opportunities we have and that we take for granted. So I try to tell my kids, we live in a country where you have tremendous opportunities to do things, and we need to appreciate that.
I agree. That's very well said. So how would you like people to connect with you?
People can get on my website, healthmarketgenius.com. They can email me at kyle@healthmarketgenius, or they can call me at 828-266-1369.
That's excellent, Kyle. And like I said before, your insight into the health insurance market is incredible. I think people should take advantage of it. If you have questions about health insurance, whether it's today, during open enrollment, or any time after that, I would tell you to call Kyle. He knows what he's talking about. Your information on just disruption in business overall, I think, is helpful for any business owner, entrepreneur. So I think that is very valuable. The time you served with the U.S. Navy, amazing. We appreciate that. And just everything else that you're doing. Obviously, you have a passion and an energy about you and your business and your family. And for us, it's great to watch. We love seeing that. We love talking to entrepreneurs like yourself. So that's been fun. And really appreciate you spending some time with us on this podcast. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I had a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Kyle, it was absolutely awesome having you on this podcast. From Kyle's specific knowledge on the health insurance market to his ability to avoid government disruption in business, Kyle is a great example of how to stay relevant in a fast-paced world. The perspectives he brings as a health insurance agent and company founder are now perspectives you as a business owner and entrepreneur can use for yourself. And for that, Kyle, thank you. And for any business owner looking to learn more about their choices with health insurance, I would encourage you to reach out to Kyle. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can contact me on Twitter at Eric_Kaz or with the same name on Instagram, or you can find us at KazSource.com with links to us on the different social networks. Thank you for listening to our KazSource podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. And until next time, we're out of here. This podcast exists in large part because of KazCM, the content marketing business inside KazSource Inc. KazCM is excited to bring the content marketing services used at KazSource to you. Learn more by visiting KazCM.com. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It's a big deal to us. We hope you found value in it, and if you did, we would be incredibly grateful if you gave us a review on iTunes. Remember to subscribe to this podcast and feel free to share it with anyone you know. More than anything, thank you again for listening. We appreciate it.